Today we're scaping the 375-gallon aquarium. We don't have a lot of time to talk. If you guys watched last Sunday's video, it's the same day and we got a lot to do and get done, so I'm just going to jump right into it. But if you didn't watch that Sunday video, make sure you do, because it's going to explain an awful lot about what we have going on here. As mentioned though, I'm starting off with the scape going from this side all the way down. Right now, I have to build a little area to plant some val into. I don't need anything specific here. I'm not even really grabbing at specific pieces, so there's no thought process going into this. I just need something to hold all this back that looks natural. Nice rocks here will do the trick. And that's pretty much what I'm looking to do, just a natural barrier. You'll see in a minute what I'm looking to accomplish here. But I need something that can hold a lot of this substrate behind it, and because this val is actually pretty deep rooted, so most of this is going to be covered, and then I'm going to cover it in another substrate. So let's go ahead and do that now. That should do it. Now I want a ever so light layer of this gravel over top of it. I do like the ADA soil. I do not like the look of it bare. This will actually be easier to plant the val in anyways. I feel like I'm making a cake. Yeah, so that looks definitely a lot better than just the soil. A few of the little rocks making it look a lot natural as well. Plus it gives me a couple of inches, you know, upwards of like 3 or so inches of soil back here in the back of the tank. Elevates the val a little bit more, so we can get that effect where it's, you know, coming across the top of the tank. But yeah, I think it looks good like this. We're just getting started though. Now we can move on to the sand. Oh. I'll probably end up using about, what are these, 40 pound, this 50 pound bags. I know I'm gonna use at least 100 pounds. I might end up using even more, but we're gonna see. Now this is a fine sand, so we don't want to use a tremendous amount. I'm looking for a ½ inch to an inch in most cases. However, up here, it will slope down a little bit, but that's just for aesthetics. Too deep of a sandbag can eventually cause some problems, and we certainly don't want that. Just with anaerobic issues, maintenance things, so. I'm not a very delicate aquascaper, as you can tell. I'm literally just dumping everything out of the bag. I don't care. We can smooth it out later. I don't even know how this is going to turn out. You know, so that's kind of the look I'm looking for with the substrate. Very simple, very flat. I want the focus to be on the fish and the wood structure. With using a light substrate, that's also going to reflect a lot of light and make the fish look a little bit better, especially the type I'm getting. But now we're out of time. The plants are arriving at the airport in about 20 minutes. It takes me 25 minutes to get there. So let's go get them. Plants are here. All right, I'll show you what I got. So the first one is called Spiky Moss. Now this is like a fancy Java moss basically, but it's going to grow a little bit lower and kind of hug the branches a little bit better. I've got 40 portions of this, so we're going to be able to cover a lot of that wood, and in these portions there's a considerable amount here. I also got some Vallisneria. Now, this is 5 portions. I've got 30 portions of this. However, each portion has about 10 or 12 individual plants. So in total, we have about 350 plants, so we'll be able to cover that back area really nicely. We're going to get almost a finished effect right away. With that said, it's also about 10 or 12 inches long, so once it's planted in the tank, it's also going to look pretty good, but it still has a ways to grow. But we're going to plant in a minute because now we got to move on to the hardscape. However, it is getting late, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get done tonight. I hope I'm able to get all of it. So there's a ton of wood here, and I got to keep telling myself that less is more. I always try to add in all of my supplies because I don't like to waste things. However, having extra just means better selection, so wish me luck. I really only have a couple of shots at this. I feel like it's getting late. I've got to get this planted. It's already got the substrate in. I don't want to mess it up too much. So one thing I do want to note is at the back, all of that Vallisneria is going to cover the entire area in the back. I want the wood to look like it is, fell down and it's coming out of that valve. So I'll put some of the bases into the valve a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then I want it to kind of trail off into the tank. And I need to use all relatively big pieces with large branches just so I can easily attach that moss to it. So we'll see what happens. Really nice pieces though. Let's call it done. These pieces of wood are so nice that it's only going to take a few to really make this pop. And I do want the fish to be able to swim above it, so I don't want it piled up too high. See what happens. No, I think I'm going to push the logs and the branches back some more. I'm not going to use this piece at all. I don't like it. Looks better in a smaller tank. Yeah, I want these up here more. Damn, even something like that, eh? That by itself doesn't look so bad. Starting to look like a reptile aquarium. I think I'm going to stay away from a lot of the pieces that have big curves in them like this, and try to use branches that are all kind of similar. Like these are curvy, but they don't go in an entire loop. So this one's out of the question too. I also kind of want them to be like same color and whatnot, so they match well. I like that. All right, so this is kind of exactly what I was looking to do. If we could look in the back, what I was cutting was making sure the back wasn't, going into the valves too much. I do want to kind of have the appearance as though this big piece is coming out from it. And I think it captivated that. It's always difficult to give a proper perspective on camera, but I really like it. I'm not sure if this is, the proper way to scape, or maybe the wood should have been positioned a little bit differently, but I really like it. It's going to be really fun to scape, and once it grows in, and I see hundreds of rainbow fish swimming throughout this, clearly I still need to stock it. And when you think about it, when there's 200 fish in here, they are going to need some space. So we had to keep it really simple. I also want this tank to be next to no maintenance. But yeah, I think we could put a little bit of water in here now and start planting. Oh, last night went pretty late. It's the next day, tons of energy, time to actually plant the tank. I'm not really looking forward to this because there's about 400 individual plants that we need to install into the aquarium. However, I think that this is going to give us a really good impact right away instead of needing to wait a tremendous amount of time for the plants to grow. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to start off with the moss and attaching them to the wood with some sewing thread, just tying it on the branches. This is why I wanted this wood, because it's really easy to tie the moss on. The portions are actually quite large. And like I said, I've got about 40 of these, and this is going to cover a tremendous amount of wood. Downside is it's going to take a tremendous amount of time. First, I'll have to moisten the wood. I'm just going to wet it down a little bit so the moss sticks to it a little easier as I'm continuously scaping. And just to make sure that none of it dries out, because this will be taking a while, every once in a while, give it a little squirt of some water. One for you and one for me. We're just going to go ahead and get all of the branches slightly dampened. Again, this is just going to allow the moss to kind of stick to it as we're scaping. But as I'm doing this, I'll also notice some things I might want to change about the positioning of the wood and whatnot. But right now, all I'm kind of looking for is for it to look kind of like one large piece. And so far, you know, I think it does. I think it looks really good. In fact, I'm quite surprised and pleased of how all this turned out. With that said, I should admit that, like, you know, I notice a lot of people compare their scapes and what they do to everybody else. I'll admit that, you know, while I can appreciate what other people do, when it comes to my own aquariums, I largely don't care what anybody else is doing. Because at the end of the day, this is my aquarium, I'm the one that has to enjoy it, and I gotta make it visually pleasing to myself. But there's a bit of a catch-22, you see. There's also a lot of people that watch my videos and draw from, you know, inspiration. So for me, it benefits me in two ways. One, I get to make some really simple scapes that I enjoy and are easy to make, but you guys can also emulate them if you'd like to. You know, and that's the entire point of this scape, is to use some plants that are commonly available, use a really low maintenance scape and so forth that you guys can actually do. Maybe you want to do something a little bit more intricate, maybe a little bit more complicated, but again, this is a 375 gallon aquarium. You know, this is a lot more difficult to scape than, say, like a 30 or 40 gallon tank where you use a lot smaller supplies and whatnot. But I don't know, I'm pleased with it. I'd love to know what you guys think, as always. So if you would have did something different, especially, I'm always open to those types of ideas. I will say that I believe that I'm going to be adding some rocks to this scape. I think that's like one of the things that it's kind of missing. And I'll probably do that here eventually. Maybe I'll have this done, the rocks in. I'll probably have to add the rocks in a few days once I go find the ones I want to use. But just some rocks over on the edges here. Maybe they come out a little bit, maybe a few over here, something like that. Something very simple. Now, I'm not going to make you guys watch this entire planting. This is going to take me a couple of hours, so I'll most likely have to skip a lot of this. But I'm going to give you guys a basic idea and run through of what I have planned here. Great thing about this stuff is that you can break it up and use spread it out amongst a ton of branches here. But you can see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and cover this branch as much as I can. Spread this moss out pretty well, just like that. And then that's when I take the sewing thread. You don't have to take it off the spool, but what I like to do here is, if you can, you know, tie a little bit of a knot on one end. And I'm using some very thin black thread. This is going to eventually dissolve in the aquarium, but starting it off with a little bit of a knot there is just going to ensure that it doesn't go anywhere. Now, the more thread you use, technically, the better. Once we get water in this moss is going to loosen up and it's going to want to detach from the wood. We need to give it an opportunity to, you know, really seat itself on this wood. And I find that using as much moss as you can is going to speed that process up. So I like to ravel it up, and, you know, each thread might be separated by maybe a ½ inch to an inch, something like that. But again, the more the better. It's very simple, it's just very time consuming. Once you get back to the other end, or not. So that took about 4 hours, and in the meantime, I've just been keeping the moss wet with a little bit of water, spraying it on. All of the moss is tied on with almost an entire spool of thread. I ended up using 36 of the portions. I don't want to overdo it, and I think it looks really good now, and I think you guys can get a much better idea of what I'm looking to accomplish here. But I gotta say, in person, this looks absolutely incredible, and I can't wait until we have over 200 rainbow fish swimming through this tank. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's definitely probably a little difficult for you guys to imagine what I was looking to accomplish here, but we're well on our way to getting to where I want to be. Now, of course, all of this moss is going to grow in slowly over the next couple of months, and all of that sewing thread that we use will slowly dissolve in the tank, leaving behind the moss attaching to the wood. Now, of course, we've got this big empty space in the back to plant all of that val. So the next thing we need to do is plant the Vallisneria in the back, and hopefully we have enough to cover the entire back portion. I will be filling the tank up slightly just so that the val is slightly standing up so I can get a better idea of distribution. So all the Vallisneria is in, as you can see. One thing we should note here is that this is really going to fill in and of course grow to the top of the aquarium. However, something else you'll notice is now that the tank actually has some water in it, and I've run into a couple of problems. Clearly it's a little bit foggy right now, but the wood started to slightly float. Not by a tremendous amount, but enough to the point where I had to add in some rocks, just to slightly weigh them down. And these are positioned to be both aesthetically pleasing as well as purposeful and holding the wood down. I'm not happy with the way the rocks look, but I will be changing them once the wood is fully sunk, which should only take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. It's, you know, when it comes to manzanita, it's not a wood that, you know, floats for a very long time. It's a pretty dense wood that doesn't have a lot of oxygen trapped in it, which causes wood to float. But I'm really happy with this tank. Obviously, it's going to look a lot better once we get it the clarity fixed. However, right now I think it looks really, really good, and it's exactly what I was looking for. Again, clearly this is going to look a lot different once we get the water clear and everything up and running. This is the second time I've filled the tank, and it's now Tuesday morning, so I'm not gonna have enough time to get this clear for you guys, get everything up and running. I'm gonna spend the day doing that. And on Thursday, hopefully if everything goes well, we'll circle back and we'll take another look at this tank. But for right now, I mean, it's difficult to judge how this is going to look long term. Of course, once the tank clears up, you'll get a much better idea. And once we're able to actually position the rocks in a more favorable, you know, positions, of course it's going to look a lot better as well. But just picture with me for a second over, you know, 200 rainbow fish swimming through this. You know, I think this was a really good scape to go with. It's going to be extremely low maintenance. I'm not worried about the moss taking over the wood. I want it to. I want it to just go nuts in here. I don't care if this becomes a forest of moss. That's exactly what I want. And, you know, the val back here, that's only going to propagate so far. It's not going to, or I'm sorry, it's only going to send out runners, that's how it propagates itself. How it duplicates is, you know, each one of these plants is going to send out a runner, and it continues to grow. And this is only going to probably get as far as these rocks where the barrier is. Perhaps a few will make it to the sand, but highly unlikely. So I think that, again, this will be very low maintenance based on what I'm looking to do with it. However, again, I'm just really excited about this scape, really happy with the end result. And I'm really pleased with you know, using a lot less wood than I had planned, or that I had in there originally. We only have maybe 5 or 6 big pieces, maybe 1, 2, 3, yeah, five or 6 pieces in there, and I think it looks really good. Again though, like things like this, like these rocks here weighing down the little corners of the wood, that's clearly gotta go. And over here, you know, weighing down a little bit bigger, thicker pieces, that's gotta go. You know, I'll probably leave the rocks in there to a certain extent, but I don't want them piled up on top of the wood like that. I would rather have them cascade down, potentially, you know, be more natural looking. But all of these plants actually came from Jeff at One Fish, Two Fish, Dartmouth. You guys have seen that store tour. Recently, he's made me buying plants a lot easier to do. He now has a website where you can just order the plants online, and you can pick them up in the store, or he'll ship anywhere in Canada. So if you guys are looking for plants that you know are coming from a trusted source, good quality, go ahead and check out his website. Link will be in the description below. You can get the plants exactly where I get mine from. But yeah, as you can see, my office area over to the right here, I'm going to be able to see right through the tank. And ideally is what I'm going to aim for is the reason why this is left wide open space here is because this is where I'm going to feed the rainbows. While they will enjoy the scape and swimming in through all the wood, I'm hoping that they're going to spend a lot of time in the open areas. And in order to encourage that, this is where I'll be feeding them. And fish have a tendency to stick around places that they trust where they know food is going to be. So that's the plan. And hopefully it works out well. Ultimately, though, we've got 200 coming. It's just going to look absolutely amazing. And that's just the beginning stocking for this tank. Mind you, this is a 375-gallon tank with a 120-gallon sump. This is a 495-gallon system. Lots of plant filtration, water changes, and a huge capable sump. We can truly go, I'll go nuts with the stocking. But I got to admit, this is a pretty big tank. I never really felt like it was a big tank, clearly because I've got a 2000 sitting over here, and I've always had really big fish. But with that said, you don't realize how big a tank is until you have to scape it properly. And, you start considering normal type of fish, like average type fish that could go in the aquarium, and you realize, like, wow, I can put a whole lot of little fish in this tank. And now I understand why you guys are always saying, with my big tanks, oh, you should do this and, plant it or make it a reef or stock it with this type of fish. Like you guys, I finally get what you mean. But, I've always been into the bigger fish, and I always thought, no, big tanks for big fish. But this is a big tank with little fish. And I'm excited to see what it's going to look like, and I'm sure many of you guys are as well. And if you are and you're not subscribed to this channel yet, I highly suggest you do, because this coming Tuesday, I'm going to show it up and running, everything on the go. This coming Thursday. It's already Tuesday. And then this Sunday, if everything goes to plan, we're going to stock the tank.